Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beauty Topics podcast. I'm your host, Chantel, and I have a really wonderful friend on my couch today. I've known her for quite some time now. It's been some years now.
At least 4.5.
Yes. So I have the lovely mompreneur, Marcie Garza. She is the owner of Sweet Occasion Cookie Company. And I absolutely love her. She is wifey, mother, business owner. She juggles so many things. And she's just been such a wonderful friend to me. And I'm so excited to have you here, Marcie.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And honestly, I could just ditto all of those things back to you. And I feel like every time we get together, we have the best heart to hearts.
We do.
When are we ever oh, what's the weather like? No,
Never.
It's tell me your deepest, darkest secrets. Mm-hmm. Let's talk it out.
Mm-hmm. It's tell me all the things. Because, something you said to me was said to me in our last appointment was very triggering for me. But I'll get into it later. But I think you know what it is. Mm-hmm. But it kind of became a little mantra for me that makes me stop and think at times.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself and your fam.
Well, let's see. I am an entrepreneur, like you said. Mm-hmm. I own Sweet Occasions Cookie Co., a bakery, a home-based bakery that specializes in decorated sugar cookies. I always say that they are almost too cute to eat.
They are.
Definitely too good not to.
Yeah.
But that's kind of been taken over my life the last 5 years, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a lot of who I am in, this phase of life is that. But I've been married for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years at the end of this month.
Go, girl.
Oh, I know. We have this sweetest little boy, Jeremiah. He's 6, 2 pups. And we're kind of new-ish to the area. We moved in 2019 to the Fulshire area. We were in Corpus before that, in Houston before that, Houston proper. So I feel like we've done a lot of
shifting.
And in the last few years, definitely, I was like, okay, let's throw some roots down.
You want some home base. You want a home base. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I've been pursuing and talking a lot about. Just in most conversations, it always comes back to who are we as women? Who are we in business? Who are we as, partners and moms? And just, I feel like when, people always say, if you know who you are, you'll find your people. And so I think
you'll find your tribe.
Yeah. I've just really been figuring out who am I in this phase of life? And definitely the tribe has been building.
Yes.
Yeah.
I noticed because I look at your socials and I see little events and stuff that you do, and I'm like, she likes my same girls.
Yes.
Katie Littler and all the girls. I love them. Yeah. I love them. Okay. So what actually inspired you though to become an entrepreneur? Oh my God, I love the nail color.
Thank you.
Oh, she's so cute.
Pink is my personality.
I love it. But what was the inspiration behind it? What made it actually come about?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that, and at first, people ask, did you ever think you'd be an entrepreneur? Asking me here recently. No. But then I think, yeah. So before cookies, I was a dietitian, and I did that for 12 years.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I was in hospitals and communities, all about, healthy lifestyles, and I still stand by it and think it's so important. But when I first started out as a dietitian, I had a private practice. So this isn't super new territory. It's just in a different way. And so I think I have always had this entrepreneurial spirit. And I'm married to an entrepreneur. And so I feel like the two of us together, we're always oh, that could be a business, or this is an opportunity. So I think maybe he brings that out in me, because I will say my first go around in private practice, there were definitely some holes. It was one of those where I was I want to do it. And I definitely jumped into it without thinking it through.
Yeah.
And this go around, my husband was very much okay, so what's the plan?
The plan, yes.
What's
that's
the paperwork?
My husband. My husband is very much, what's the plan? And I want you to do, he brings it out of me too, for sure. You have to have someone that kind of makes it feel, I guess for me, makes it feel less scary.
Yes.
And
having that soundboard.
Yeah.
And somebody you know is always going to be in your corner and wants to see you succeed.
'Cause
So
it's
that
like
has
you
helped.
win, we win. Like
Yes.
it's tenfold. The house wins.
Yes. And what a joy, like what a blessing to have that in a spouse and a partner.
Yeah.
But also to have that in your community, in your friends and your neighbors and your family, like extended family. So anytime an entrepreneur is surrounded by a support system, there's victory in that alone. Like you're bound to succeed.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. But I'm so curious about where did you discover like this love for baking? Because, you know, the folks watching and listening, they don't understand the deliciousness that it is your cookies. Because what was that cookie you gave me that was like an apple cider shortbread?
Yeah.
I about lost my mind. So I'm like, where did this love for baking come from? Is it from mama? Like, where is it from?
Oh, bless my mama. She is so amazing in so many ways. Baking is not one of them.
Oh. Sorry, Mom, it wasn't you.
But actually, my dad is an incredible cook.
Wow. Go Dad.
Yeah. And as a young kid, I don't remember him in the kitchen much. But when he was, you knew something good was going to happen.
Oh, all right.
He had a wok.
I love
We're
it.
like these, you know, little Hispanics in deep South Texas. Like, what was my dad doing with a wok?
Girl, stir frying some chicken and veggies.
But at the time, like, it was very unusual.
Yeah.
I often think back to like meals as a kid, and I don't think we had many vegetables except like salsa and canned green beans. Truly. Like vegetables were just not something that we did a whole lot.
Wow.
So the fact that my dad was just whipping up a stir fry.
I love it.
But he was so good at it. Dad, I'd like some more.
Hello, bring it on by. Like
and
we're
then
here
my
for.
dad's side of the family, like all of my tias, my grandma, oh my gosh, they are so gifted in the kitchen. So I grew up at my grandma's house, like surrounded by the most incredible smells and just like, you know, breads and tortillas and cookies and turkey and tamales, like you name it, they would make it. And to the point where my grandmother, she would render her own pork fat for like really good high quality lard. Like she wasn't going to the store to grab that. She was making it herself. And growing up, my grandmother, she was a teacher. And I always tell people when I talk about my grandma, she is one of the smartest women I've ever known. She's passed and it's been a while, but I always talk about her in like present tense. But she was brilliant and she did so much while raising kids and, you know, being a wonderful wife and partner to her husband, my grandpa. But, you know, teachers, they have extended periods of time off in the summer, at holidays, like especially at the time when my grandmother was teaching, like extra income was always welcome. And so she actually started making cookie baskets.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I would go visit her at the holidays and she would have every kind of cookie under the sun. And I'm talking like in the 90s, she had a cookie room and not like a 10 by 10 room. No, it was like a 20 by 20, like 400 square feet of cookies and Tupperware boxes and not like tubs, like storage containers of cookies. And she had pan de polvo and cherry bells and chocolate chip cookies. And
what was your favorite? What was your favorite from her?
I'm so glad you asked. This is my favorite question. It has a million names. Mexican wedding cookies.
Oh, girl, they're delicious.
Yeah,
I know exactly what it is. It's so good. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a shortbread cookie with pecans inside, rolled in powdered sugar. And when I tell you,
they melt in your mouth.
They
melt in your mouth.
And I only make them at the holidays. I also made them for my wedding. So my husband and I were married. At that point, my grandmother was sick and couldn't be with us. And I was gifted the recipe.
That's so special.
And these recipes you earn, like, and no one person in the family has all the recipes. So,
girl,
I know if anything will keep us together, it's our love and my grandmother's recipes.
I love that.
So I made them as like party favors for the wedding, and I would eat a solo cup full before Thanksgiving dinner,
girl,
and then I would eat Thanksgiving dinner because it was also amazing, and then I would have another cup after, and then I would take a cup with me to go. When I got that recipe and I saw what went into those cookies and I was like, wait, like, where's the milk? Where are the eggs? Like, what holds us together? And I realized it was butter.
Butter.
I was immediately hit with like, okay, in my lifetime then, how many sticks of butter have I had? No regrets because they are delicious.
Yeah, no, that's why it melts in the mouth, because it's just butter.
It's just butter.
It's like butter and pecans.
Yes, so
and powdered sugar.
good.
And all that together just melts away to this deliciousness, and I can just feel it sticking to my thighs.
And it's so good, but also like another reason it's my favorite now at this stage in my life is like every holiday season when I make these cookies, it smells like my grandma's house. Aww. And I just feel like she's with me.
Yeah, because scents evoke memories. You know, I'm big on that. Like, I'll smell something and go, like, I'll smell the original Old Spice and I'll just think of my maternal grandfather. I'm like, that's him. You know, he smelled like Old Spice, you know, it just, or when I smell like tobacco things, it reminds me of my paternal grandfather. I'm like, because he loved his tobacco and stuff. And I'm like, oh, you know, and it just, it transports you to that place, you know?
Yeah. And I'm sure you get that too, like in your line of work, you know, with fragrance and stuff too, or even like the scent of makeup, you know?
Yeah, I'll smell a lip gloss and I'll go, oh my gosh, this reminds me of my first lip gloss, my little Bonnie Bell or my little Tinkerbell.
Oh my gosh, the Tinkerbells. We used to only get them at Sears. Yeah, and that was like, oh my gosh, if I could get that.
Yeah, it was the best. It was so fun. And the lip smackers, oh my gosh, we were such a mess.
No, I love it.
It was so fun though. But I want to know, like, you have your grandmother's very special recipe and they're spread out through the family, but how do you cultivate like your own recipes, like that apple cider shortbread cookie?
Yes.
I still talk about it like every other day. My husband's like, you got to get over this cookie. And I'm like, well, but you don't understand, because I wanted to share it with him, but I think I ate the whole thing and I ate it so fast. And I was just like, because your cookies melt in your mouth. So in your mind, you're like, it wasn't that many calories because it just melted.
Thank you.
That's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
But like, how do you come up with these scent profiles? Or these taste profiles, I should say.
That's a really good question. So kind of going back to like my education in nutrition, one of my favorite classes was a food science lab where we were learning on like recipe modifications and things like that. So part of it was that, you know, formal training, understanding the science behind what different ingredients in a recipe do.
Okay.
But also being raised in a family where food and like flavor profiles and quality tasting food was prioritized, exposed me to like, you know, really great ingredients and flavors and things like that. But then I've always just loved food. So from a very young age, I would watch like before the Food Network was either around or like before we could afford the Food Network, I would watch TLC.
Yes.
And you know how they would have like Wolfgang Puck or something, like executive chefs in hotels. Like for me, that was like elite, was these executive chefs in 5-star hotels.
Yes.
And I would watch them put stuff together and I couldn't always hear what they were saying or they were speaking different languages, but I would try and take notes. I'm talking, I was like 6, maybe 8.
Yeah, I've been cooking since I was 8. Yes.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And it started with that. So I was watching and I was jotting things down. We didn't have DVR, TiVo. You couldn't pause.
None of the above, girl. We didn't even have internet, okay? There was no internet.
So you really had to like write quick.
Yes, you had to write recipes down. And I remember my mom tearing recipes out of magazines, like Good Housekeeping, and she had a little binder where you save your recipes because there was no internet. You better tear it out or borrow a recipe from someone else.
Yeah, we've had the Luby's
You had to be creative.
Yes.
Yeah, cookbook. Southern Living Cookbook was a big deal. But I remember watching but we would watch it on like PBS. We watched The Frugal Gourmet.
Ooh.
We watched this old Cajun guy called Justin Wilson. He was so funny. And then we would watch Yan Can Cook. And he would say, because he always had his wok, this Asian guy. He was amazing. He said, if Yan can cook, so can you. And he would say that every episode and we loved it.
Yeah. So if Yan can do it.
Yeah, then we can too.
And so like where I grew up, it was very like we were in a minority, right? There were a bunch of Hispanics, but we didn't have much else, you know, in the form of like authentic cuisine of other cultures. And so as soon as I had the opportunity, I would take it. Or I would like take these notes from these TV shows and I'd be like, okay, yeah, one day I'd really like to try like lavender scent, you know, flavored whatever. Or
your cup fell over.
So just kind of that curiosity was planted. And then as soon as I had the opportunity, I was like, oh yeah, I always wanted to try a pesto or whatever.
Yeah, yummy.
Yeah. And so then as I got that opportunity, especially like in college, I was studying nutrition and food and I went to A&M, and so it was very different. I was surrounded by different cultures and things like that. So I was like, oh, let me try that. And I just kind of took that with me. And now it's kind of like a different side of creativity is just figuring out what flavors go together or reading menus and seeing like, oh, they paired these things together. Like, let me try that. So I'm able to take some like basics of, okay, what makes a good, in this case, what makes a good cookie dough? Something that has the right texture, that will bake up well, that will maintain its shape, you know. Let me take those foundations and now how can I incorporate different flavors or interesting flavors? And so for example, one time, like my thing is when you work with me, you get a custom cookie order, right?
Yeah.
And the first time I took it to the next level, I had a client, she's like, you know, we want cookies for groundbreaking for a new residential community. And the community was named after a citrus fruit.
Oh.
And I was like, it's the summer. You want to like, this is for a citrus themed residential community. Like how far do you want to take this custom? Because I can create a flavor for you.
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, sure. So we created what's now called my summer citrus flavor. We created it for this event. And so it has, at first it was like, well, let's do all orange to like really run with the theme. And I tasted it. I was like, you know, it's like missing a little bit of sweetness. It's missing a little bit of tang. Like, so I was like, okay, let's add a little lime. Let's add a little lemon to really drive that like tart. And so just through experimenting, I was able to create that flavor for her. It went over so well. And I have, you know, some clients who that summer I was like, hey, I have this, come try it. And now they like put it in their own order. So I have some flavors that are seasonal, like the apple cider flavor that you really like is like fall.
Okay.
Pumpkin spice is fall. The summer citrus is summer. Strawberries kind of starts in February for Valentine's Day and goes through the spring into the summer. Lemon is like later spring into the summer. So, yeah. But I always tell people, like, when they're like, oh, what flavors do you have? I'm like, well, what do you want? Because especially if I have the time, like, ooh, we can dream up something super fun.
And they're all yummy. I have not tried the summer citrus.
I'll have to get you some.
For that. Yeah. I have not tried that one. I've tried so many amazing things that you have because even your delicious like oatmeal and yes, I love those when you
drop
do the
cookies.
Yes. Oh, so those are called drop cookies.
Yeah, so like the decorated cookies, that's technically like a rollout cookie or a cutout dough. So like if somebody were trying to search online, like how do I make my own dough? You can search like, you know, sugar cookie dough, but you might get some spread on that. So if you like cut a star, it might look like a flower.
Oh,
you know, once it spreads in the oven.
Yes. Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
okay.
So like the kind of dough that you get at the store generally will do that. And it's just because it has too much fat or wet ingredients, not enough dry ingredients. So if you were to like search a rollout sugar cookie dough or cut out sugar cookie dough, that will usually get that like dough
because
that
yours holds its shape. When you make a little cowboy hat, it looks like a cowboy hat. After it's baked, it's always like they're always perfect.
That's the goal with the decorated cookies. Now with those like more traditional flavors like oatmeal raisin or oatmeal chocolate chip or chocolate chip, macadamia nut, that kind of stuff, those are called drop cookies.
Okay.
If you get the kind with like a bunch of toppings and stuff on it, or if it's like a stuffed cookie, sometimes they'll call them gourmet cookies. But if I say drop cookie, I'm usually talking about one where you scoop the dough and drop it on the cookie sheet and bake it. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense.
No rolling required.
No rolling required. Okay. So I am curious though, like to get that good like dough that holds its shape, does it have to do more with the measurement of the ingredients or the temperature of the butter or... You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my recipe is going to be more about the right ratio. Okay. I still will chill my dough just because that's been my practice. I haven't had the time to like, oh, what happens if I don't? Okay. But also like transferring. So if you cut it out in your dough sheet and then you have to transfer it to the baking sheet to bake, if it's too soft, then it'll kind of, the shape won't be as clean. Do you know what I mean? So like trying to lift it from like the counter to the baking sheet.
Oh,
yeah. So that's kind of why I prefer the colder dough.
Okay.
But there are some recipes out there that are no chill, so you could just do that. I haven't found one that works for me yet, though. Yeah.
But now your decorating skills are kind of like off the charts, because I remember seeing your little Mr. and, you know, Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus.
Oh, yes, I love those.
And I love that you had, you know, the Black Santa and Black Mrs. Claus, and I loved the coloring.
Oh, thank you.
And like, it was just so beautiful, like how you use the different undertones and the skin tones that you put on your cookies. It's very much appreciated. I just want to say thank you for that. It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's an honor to get to do that.
But I'm like, how do you get it? Because I see you just freehanding this on Instagram, and your reels are so beautiful. How the hell are you? Really? Because like, I can paint people's faces so eloquently, but you give me a piece of paper and I'm stuck. Like I can't do it on a piece of paper. I have to have the 3D. I have to have the face. How can you freehand? You can you draw? Like
no.
How can you? I don't understand how you can do it.
You know,
every single one comes out absolute perfection. In my mind, I want to believe that you're messing up a lot, and then your husband and your son are just eating the throwaway cookies. Like I want to believe that. But like, to watch you just do it like boop, 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 so fast, I know that's not the case. How the heck do you do that?
Well, practice. So I like in recent videos, understand it's been like 4 years of practice and things like that. But when I first started out, there were a lot of mess ups.
That makes me feel better.
Yes, I'm human. And there was like a trash pile, but I called it the boo-boo bin. And that's where I would put all my messed up cookies.
What a delicious bin.
And my husband knew, like, if you want a cookie, that's where you go.
Okay.
As I got more practice under my belt, I got better, so there were fewer mess ups, but I also learned how to fix my mess ups, which if that's not a lesson in humanity, right? Like we're all going to mess up. Let's learn how to fix it. So my boo-boo bin no longer exists.
Hello, she's got it now.
Yeah. My husband is devastated. So he'll come home and I'll be like, oh, you're working. And he'll just hang over my shoulder, like eyeing, like, you know.
Hoping for a mistake.
Like, is that what the customer wanted? I'm like, yes, babe. Thank you for your support in this moment. But I know he's just, you know, messing. And he'll tell me all the time, like, you should feel honored that I still, after all these years, love your cookie so much. I'm like, you know what? I love that
so grateful.
reframe. But there are also like tricks that we use as cookiers. So one of them being a projector. So I have like an overhead projector that projects down, and it'll project an image onto my cookie. So with particularly precise things like writing, I really want all the writing to look the same across the set. I want it to be centered or in the right location. So I use a projector for that. But even that takes skill because it's projecting straight down. So you have to learn how to decorate sideways a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say your hand would cover.
Yes.
Oh.
So you got to figure that out. I'm pretty sure like I need a chiropractor just from like all the, you know, trying to get under the projector just right.
Yes,
you got to contort a little bit. So there's that. But then definitely the practice builds the confidence. I remember having a conversation with another cookier. And she was like,
I love the term. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I love the term cookier.
Isn't it cute?
She's a cookier.
I'm a cookier.
So cute.
A professional title. And I was chatting with her, and she was freehanding like font on her cookies. And I was like, girl, you're so good. And she's like, you'll get there. I'm like, never will I ever.
Yes, you will.
And then I remember the first time I was like, can I do this without a projector? And I did. And I was like, victory. And I messaged her. And I was like, Caitlin, I did it. You know, I was so excited.
Yeah.
And now it's like okay, I'm able to more confidently do that. But I hear you completely. Like I took one art class in middle school, 7th grade. And I often tell this story. I could not draw to save my life.
I can't make a stick person straight, but I can do a wing liner so sharp.
So sharp. I'm here to.
I don't know why, but I can't do it on a paper. It has to be different. On a face.
Yeah.
I can't
and
do
talking about lessons in life, you know, if you're not in the right environment, if you don't have the right medium, it's not going to be for you, right? Like you
got that right.
It's not going to work. But when you're in the right environment, when you have the right tools, girl, you can shine.
Yes.
And that's the case with me and sugar. That's the case with you and makeup. You know, we'll leave the drawing to the professionals. We'll excel in our own lane, right?
Man, you must have felt like the MVP that day when you freehanded that.
Oh my gosh. I was so excited. And the only sad part was that nobody else was there to witness it. You know, and this is something as a solopreneur you experience. Like, you're by yourself. Like, you're your HR team. You're your
That's
own
right, girl.
management. You know, like, you're the whole thing. So it was like a little... That's why I had to message Caitlin. I was like, I did it. And she understood, right? She's like, oh, I'm sure that felt like such a victory. And it did. So it's important to build a community of people, even like within your own profession. Yeah, just to... Because you get it. You get the ins and outs. I know every time we get together and we chat, like, we can connect in the terms of like being an entrepreneur, being a wife, being a mom, and like we get it in a way that your friend who isn't an entrepreneur couldn't get. They can try, and they lovingly do try. Yeah, but it's just
different when you can clock out and leave it there. Because for me, it's 24. Like, I never clock out. If a client messages me, I hate to say this, don't necessarily do it, but. Like, I'll have clients message me at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. They'll hop up. I forgot to book you for this or this or this. Can you do it?
Tomorrow
and
morning.
I'll hop up and with one eye open, and I'll be like, okay, sure.
Yes.
Like, you know, I still answer. I can't turn it off. I don't want to leave somebody in limbo or feeling like they're not taken care of, especially if it's a client I've had for a while. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't shut it off. You know?
You're not alone. Yeah. And it's not even about like the business of it all. It's about the person.
It's about the person.
You don't want to disappoint the client. You don't want to leave them in a bind.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to draw that boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's exactly how I feel. I want to know, though, was there ever a cookie that you just felt like this design is too hard? Like, I cannot make the Empire State Building. Like, has there ever been an order where you're just like, okay, this is a bit, this is overwhelming me?
Yes.
Okay.
And so for me, that's like my character sets. So if you're like, oh, can you do an LOL doll? And I'm saying that because I've never had to do LOL dolls, but I've heard horror stories in the cookier community. So they have like those dolls with the big eyes, right? And they have like all the makeup and stuff. So there's just a lot of colors, a lot of details. Those eyes are scary to do. Okay. Before you get the eyes filled in, they look a little scary.
There's so much detail. Their little outfits.
Yes.
And they're like little, it looks crazy. I'm not a big fan of LOL because it looks like little babies wearing fishnet stockings and it throws me off. I'm like, ooh, do you really want your 5-year-old dressing like this? But okay.
Right.
But I could imagine that would be ridiculously hard.
So it's just like that vein of you're having to replicate essentially a detailed image in a way that somebody is immediately going to recognize that for what it, right? Like, you can't be like, hey, can I get a Bluey cookie? And it looks like Snoopy, you know? It has to mimic that, especially when you're talking about any Disney princess. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
So like the shading, the eyeshadows, the face, the nose. So when you're adding all these like 3D shadings on a 2D surface, it's really challenging.
Okay, I could see that.
Yes, so that's really hard. And
maybe that's why I can paint faces and not paper.
Maybe
you just explained it. That's it.
But I will say, working with you, because I think the first time we worked together was for my branding shoot. Yes. Right, with Aaron. And just like watching you work and shade and fill and do all the things, like I was able to take that into doing a princess cookie. I was like, oh, she needs some contour here, and she has like the eyeshadow, so we got to get that crease in there.
Girl, get it.
It was. I look like a troll,
but love it.
Elsa looked great, you know.
Girl, you're crazy.
So anytime I take on a character set, it's like, okay, I can do this. So I'm able to do it. Yeah. But it is a lot of like anxiety and stress. I'm thinking about it weeks in advance, like, okay, that character is coming up, you know, and I don't want anybody to be disappointed. Right.
How many hours, how labor intensive is this? I know like you do the dough and you rolling out and baking and all that, but when it comes to like decorating time, like, is that the bulk of the...
Yes. So if going back to that character set, a single character cookie can take me about an hour.
Wow. So, to do how many?
To do one.
To do one.
To do one cookie. Yeah. Because it's usually like layers and shades and it's a lot. So especially if it includes like fingers and hands, like yikes. It's a lot of time. And so they look fantastic, but it is labor intensive. And so I'll usually do a set where you get some characters and then some that are a little bit more straightforward to decorate, so that the average set is still only taking me about 10 hours to do.
Okay, I could see it. So like a Cinderella set of cookies, you'd have like 3 or 4 Cinderellas, and then you'd have like the glass slipper, and then you'd have like the little pillow.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like
and
the
it
kid's
tells
name.
a story.
Yes.
And like the birthday girl's name. It like tells a whole story in a very beautiful way without being... Okay, because I was getting ready to say, it's like if you're doing a dozen of those, 12 hours of work, my God, I would be charging $100 a cookie. Nobody would want me.
Right. And you know what? Sometimes I have had to like lovingly turn down an order for something like that, or suggest a different option so that I'm not having to charge $100 a cookie, or so that I can still have time in my week for my family or myself or, you know, normal things. So, and luckily I've never had an issue with that. I mean, I feel like the clients that I've brought in that especially like regulars, they're so fantastic and understanding and always great to work with.
Well, but you're the epitome of professional already as it is. So, but okay, so I want to know like, what's a consultation like? Like I'm hosting an event, like my daughter's graduation party is coming up. It's actually going to be on her birthday. Oh. So like, that's June 7th. So how far in advance, if I want, let's say I want 3 dozen cookies.
Sure.
I want to do like, you know, like capping gowns and things like that. Like how far in advance notice do I need to like come meet with you and sit down? Like, do we have a face-to-face consultation or like a tasting, or do people just say, this is the flavor I want? Or how does the consultation work?
Yeah, so the way it works for me, because I'm home-based, we don't do in-person consultations, but I kind of let like my social media, my website be my portfolio of work.
Okay.
And then I don't offer a tasting at this point yet, but I do often have like pre-sales, so somebody could pre-order, and that's a great time to order just like a single flavor.
Gotcha.
Or a single cookie versus being committed to a 2 dozen minimum order for a custom set. So normally my clients have either tried me for a pre-sale or at a pop-up or a class or something like that, or are referred to me by somebody that they know who has tried my stuff, or they've tried my stuff at another event and things like that. So usually flavor-wise, it's like, okay, I got it. I think also with decorated cookies, a lot of people just assume like this is just for show. Like they're not going to taste very good. They're just here to be pretty. And so when they get my cookies and they do bite into it and they realize it is really delicious, it's kind of like, you know, they're extra delighted.
Yeah, they're blown away.
So that's exciting. But I'm usually pretty accommodating. I try to figure out how to do something. I have created like a little tasting box. So I had a client who was like, I'd really like to try them. I'm like, okay, well, I'm making these flavors this week. Like you're welcome to buy, you know, X amount of cookies that are just plain frosted for you to try. So I have had to do that.
Box, because I've had brides that like want cookies available at the wedding, because it's like full family wedding. Like there's going to be children and adults. And, you know, it's like a lot easier. It's not messy to give the kid a cookie as opposed to giving them like a big hunk of cake. So, so I'm like, a tasting box is amazing that it gives them an option of flavors to kind of see what they like. I love that you do that.
And normally I try and work it around when I'm already using a flavor. So I'm not making, because my batches might make, you know, anywhere from 72 mini cookies to 36 regular size cookies. So it just kind of depends. So I try and work it in whenever I have that flavor that they're wanting to try around when possible, right? Or if I can use it for a pop-up or something, I try and minimize how much like wasted dough I have. Because have you seen the price of eggs?
Yes, $15.62 to be exact at H-E-B for an 18 count.
Oh my gosh.
I was just there. $15.62 for an 18 count of extra large eggs at H-E-B. And then Costco has not had eggs. I've gotten to Costco when they opened the past 4 Sundays, and not a single time have they had eggs available.
Gosh.
Not one time this past, actually it's been a month and a half, have they had eggs at all.
Scary.
At 10 a.m., no eggs.
That's
and
wild.
I go straight there to the egg section.
The
no
secret
eggs.
might be a weekday if you can make it. But even then, I'm only getting like the 18 count or whatever. I got my 3 limit
Girl.
of boxes this last time I went, but
It's crazy.
I know.
I'm going to have to try it because I've just been so busy, but I'm like, I'm going to have to just go in there on a random Wednesday and see if I can get some eggs.
We're going to make it. It's going to be fine. But
Yeah.
in the meantime,
I'm contemplating. My husband's like, I'm putting chickens in the backyard. I'm like, okay, we got to do what we got to do.
My back neighbor has chickens in her backyard.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Do you want some eggs?" Yesterday, I was like,
Yes.
Because right now, all the eggs in my fridge are from my business.
Exactly.
Like we're finding other breakfast protein alternatives.
There you go.
So she was like, "Do you want some?" I was like, "I would love some. Thank you so much."
I would love some. Thank you.
But hopefully everything gets sorted out soon. I mean, for us, like in our convenience, for the bakers out there, because for cookies, you don't need as many eggs as somebody who's making cakes or macarons and a bunch of frosting. Like, my heart goes out to them. I can't even imagine what that's like. But so I'd try and limit how much waste I have. So that's why I'm not always able to whip up any and all flavors. But in general, like if you trust our signature flavor, you can kind of get the vibe for texture and like commitment to flavor profiles for my other flavors. So
what are like, so if the apple cider is like special, what's core flavors? I know your traditional sugar cookie. What's core that I can, like for June, what would I be able to get? Summer citrus?
Yeah, so summer citrus would be fun. But like our core flavors that we have year round, vanilla bean, that's our signature flavor. It's such a good neutral cookie.
That's like, that was my favorite until the apple cider.
Yeah, the apple cider is good.
The apple cider wrecked my life. Now I have to wait for fall. But that one just wrecked my life because I want it all the time.
It's good.
It's so good.
And then our vanilla almond is kind of like
I had that one.
When people think sugar cookie, that's usually what they think is like that bit of almond. Almond is one of those flavors that it can go either way. People love it or hate it.
I love it.
I do too. I think it's really bright and interesting.
I love the way it smells. Like I love it as a scent note and fragrance. Yes. I love to eat almonds. I put them all in my yogurt. I love almonds. Almond shortbread is delicious.
It's so good. And for that one, the icing is also vanilla almond. So I just feel like you get that almond all the way through.
Yeah, the layers of flavor.
Yeah. And then another common one is birthday cake. It's always available. It's just so great for like younger kids' parties, especially. Yeah. It's a fun, nostalgic flavor. And then churro is another really popular flavor.
I have not had it.
Year round, that's probably my husband's favorite. Like any time of year, I can whip it up. He loves it. But in the summer, we have summer citrus. It's a little bit more orange forward, but lemon is so good. And that one's, 100% lemon, no artificial flavorings in that one or in the summer citrus either. Like I try and use the flavor for the flavor profile, like the actual ingredient over an extract as much as possible. So the lemon is just like
the lemon zest and just all the things.
It's very bright and like happy. I love it. If you love like a lemon bar.
I love a lemon bar. I love a lemon cake. I'm a fan. I like tart more than sweet, I think. I'm very much a tart person. So
it gives a good balance between the two.
Yeah.
But then there's also strawberry lemonade and strawberry. Oh, so good. One of my Valentine's gifts to my husband was just a bunch of strawberry cookies, like just hearts in the strawberry flavor.
I bet he was so happy.
He was so happy. It's the little things.
Okay, so how many... in an order, like how many flavors can you get? Like if you order 3 dozen, can you get 3 different flavors? Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
how does that work?
It's one flavor per order.
One flavor per order. Okay.
Because again, we're trying to minimize that waste and also make sure that we're not messing up, right? Okay. So sometimes if you're like, oh, I'd like these 2 flavors. Now, don't tell everybody. But sometimes if I already have birthday cake in the freezer.
Oh, then you can do it.
If I'm using it for that week for an order, so I chill my doughs in the freezer. If I'm using it for an order already, then I can split it up. But it's really just trying to minimize the waste that I'm creating and also making sure that I'm not like messing up, right? If I was like, oh, she wanted like 10 of these and 10 of these. And just because getting flavors, it's the more flavors, different ingredients. So sometimes it ends up costing more. So just trying to keep it simple, minimize our risk of messing up. And making sure you get what you're asking for. Okay. Usually it's one flavor per order. Now, if you're doing a larger order, and I know I won't have waste. So like if you're ordering, because a single batch, I can make 2 dozen cookies from a single batch. So if you were doing like 4 dozen,
then you could do
then
two
I might be able to do 2 flavors. Yeah. Okay. Especially if the icings are the same.
Okay.
So if I can, because making all the colors for a set might take me hours, depending on how detailed. Now, like those character sets, I could literally be spending 2 hours just mixing colors. So if I have to color match our vanilla icing to the lemon icing, it's almost impossible. And also because the acid from the lemon juice changes the color.
Yes.
On the icing.
There's so many little details. There's so many nuances to it that you really have to know and understand. It truly is an art. Like you are a cookie artist. Like it's because I love to watch those shows on like Food Network or on like Netflix and stuff where they're showing like, expert chocolatiers is it cake?
That's so fun.
Just watching these things or, the holiday bake off and stuff like that. It's such a talent. It's such a nuanced thing. And like one false move, one little extra quarter teaspoon of salt, and you have wrecked the flavor profile. But with the decorating, it's so just intricate and like time consuming. I didn't even think about sitting here and having to fix the color situation. Like, oh, this is a lemon cookie with lemon frosting, or wow, like just the nuance of that. Like,
and I've learned, like, it's been a learning process, and some lessons were learned easier than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I always like to try and educate the clients when possible. Because you may not know, right?
Yeah.
Like
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you're not trying to be difficult.
Baker. You think it's something, because you get this box and this smiling, beautiful woman hands it to you and it's all perfectly wrapped and you're like, oh, okay, great. But you don't realize that took her 48 hours. Like that was of work to go into that. Because we don't see the back end. We see the back end on Instagram and it looks like you do it in 20 seconds and it's perfection.
Right. And even on Instagram, like I don't go to Instagram to complain. That's not my vibe. Yeah. So you may not know how much time I put
reel.
In.
I say that every episode. It's a highlight reel.
It is.
She's not going to show you the boo-boo bin of cookies, people.
No.
But you know what? Maybe you should.
I will. I keep it pretty real. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like I don't have the effort or the desire to like hide anything. Yeah. But I also never want anything to come across as a complaint. Right. Because I recognize how blessed I am to have this business, how, amazing it is that the problem I have is that I am so busy. You know what I mean? Right. Like what a blessing. And I don't take that lightly.
Yeah, I don't take it for granted either. Like that's why I answer the calls at 9, 10 o'clock at night, because it's like I feel chosen. Like, oh my gosh, I feel seen. Like you want me to grace your face with, makeup. Like I'm so honored that like you chose me. You want me to do your hair. Oh my gosh, you want me to do the updo for your wedding. I'm absolutely honored and I love it. So that's why I always respond, because I'm 100% grateful for it. Right. Because they can pick anyone else, but they pick me. Yeah. I do have a question. What is like a minimum order? And then is there a such thing as like too big of an order or?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Yes, there is such thing as too big of an order. Especially if there's like a quick turnover in time. Okay. Usually the biggest limitation that I've had in requests that come through is just that there isn't enough time for even the cookies to dry. 1 day notice
is not it.
Right. Yeah. But again, this is a great example of how sometimes people just don't know. Right. And so I'll always take the time, if I get a phone call or whatever, and I'll just say, you know what, it takes at least 24 hours for the cookies to dry to a point where I can package them and I can trust that they're going to stay in great condition for you. The last thing I want to do is give you a cookie that's going to melt in the packaging. Like that's not what I want for you.
And they need to be completely dry, because sometimes here it's 109 outside.
And it's a humidity, and then they'll start to stick. So like that's not ever what I go for. Right. And so just letting them know, they're like, oh my gosh, well, thank you so much for letting me know. And so I always tell people, when you can, like reach out 4 to 6 weeks in advance to place a custom order so that you have the best chance of getting on my calendar. Anything with less than 2 weeks notice, there's usually a rush fee added on because I'm having to rearrange stuff.
Yeah.
And then the minimum order is 2 dozen cookies.
That's good.
So that's kind of why if you're having like a smaller holiday party or, you don't need 24 cookies, our pre-sales are really great around the holidays. But for the way it kind of works and the reason I have that 2 dozen minimum is that there's work that goes into every order, every inquiry, overhead to just run a business that, kind of has to be paid for over the course of the year of sales. So like running a website, paying for your license, packaging, the time you spend answering emails that are even just to say, I can't take that on. Like all of those things are your time in business, are your labor hours, or are your overhead costs that need to get paid for. And so if I were to charge you, a customer just for the 30 minutes of consultation time or whatever it is for a dozen, it's going to feel like that cost for the consultation time is high versus if I split it up over the course of multiple dozens. So I would say the average custom order is 2 dozen. So it's not an issue. But instead of saying, okay, it'll be $20 for your time just to chat with me. Yikes. Versus like, I can split that up over more, I'm not going to tack on a consultation fee to your dozen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense.
It just kind of helps to make sure that labor hours are still paid for, overhead is still covered, but the price per dozen isn't even higher. Gotcha. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. That was a good breakdown. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So just quick about the packaging. Each one is like individually wrapped when you pick it up in a box and all the whole 9 yards. It's a really pretty presentation.
Yeah, I want opening your cookies to feel like an experience themselves. Yeah. So every cookie is heat sealed in a clear bag, just to keep the cookies fresh, to keep them crumb free. So if you decide to put them in a goodie bag or on a platter and people grab and go, like they can grab their cookie and like you don't have to worry about, the little ones sneezing on the platter or whatever.
There you go.
Just
I love that.
Keeping things a little more hygienic.
Nice and tidy. Because you have the little ones that didn't wash their hands and they're coming from the playground and grabbing a cookie off the tray. So I love the individually wrapped.
Yes.
I'm here for that.
And lots of times people are grabbing that treat to go.
Yes,
and so if they slip it in their bag or, have it in their car, it's not just out and drying out. It's like protected. So I like that. But I always tell my clients, if you want to put them on a platter and you don't want the glare of the packaging in your photos, you're welcome to cut it out. But that way I know I'm doing my part to help give you the freshest product for your event day. Right. So that's that. And then they come in a bakery box. So it's a nice sturdy box to help get you where you need. And as often as possible, I like to try and tie it with a coordinating little tool bow. But packaging is so important to me.
Presentation is so important.
Pre-sales, holidays, pop-ups, things like that. Like I want what you get for me to be gift ready, you know? So you just grab it and go, and you can kind of almost see my cookies from far away, see them in their package, and you know that it's from me because it has the backer, the cute little design in the background.
I've known you long enough. I know a Marcie cookie when I see a Marcie cookie, and I know a Marcie cookie when I taste a Marcie cookie. Yeah. So for me, it's a little bit different. I could spot it. I'm like, there she is. There's my girl. But tell me a little bit about like your cookie pop-up shops and like the prep work that kind of goes into doing a pop-up.
Yeah. I think it's always more work than I anticipate. Is prepping for a pop-up. Yep. There's just like the anxiety, like, is anybody going to come? Am I going to have enough stuff? Am I going to have too much stuff? Am I going to have the right things that people want? Now, some of these things you learn as you go. Like I know those little paint your own cookies that I have where it's like usually all white. It has like the outline of it's kind of like a coloring book, but with cookies.
I love those.
Edible paint palette. They're so popular with the kids. Like I know those are always going to do well at pop-ups at this point. In the beginning, I wasn't sure. And so I learned that those do really well. Minis are really popular. My vanilla flavor is really popular. I get very excited about my seasonal flavors for pop-ups, and I have to remember that as excited as I am, not everybody is. Yeah. Or they want something that's like a safer bet. And so I always need to remind myself to prep, more vanilla.
Yeah.
But I love doing markets, especially markets where I'm familiar with the person who runs it, the business is there. I feel like it's just a fun community vibe. And I love supporting, people that run markets. I love supporting other businesses in the market that I'm at, or the area where I'm popping up. So for me, everything about this business is a little bit more personal and has that element of community, authenticity, integrity. All of those things are very important to me. And so if I am somewhere, if I'm attaching my company name, my personal name to a market or a pop-up or a business, like I want to make sure that we're aligned in those things. My husband always says, I talked about, he's an entrepreneur too. And he always says, like, it's just business. You need to take the emotions out of business. And I'm like, that's not how I run my business.
I wish I could, but I can't.
No, I can't.
I love my clients. Everybody gets a hug, and I check on them. How did your event go? Like, I'm invested at this point. I'm in it. When you sit in my chair and we start talking about our kids and spouses and life, like, I can't help but be invested. I'm not built that way.
Like, every time we get together and chat, we're always like, okay, are you taking care of yourself?
Yes, because I want to know.
And it's like, I really care and I want to know those things. Yeah. And I think, like, maybe it's like the husband nature of it all, like just like the male influence of, like, it's just business, take the emotions out. Or like he's more like, he's in oil and gas. Yeah. And so like it's different. It's a different beast. Totally different vibe. Yeah. Like here I'm celebrating like
you're celebrating
your wedding,
birthdays
your
and your
birthday. Yes. Like I care.
Yes.
And you can better believe that every set I'm doing, I'm saying a little prayer. Or I'm thinking like, oh, that party's going to be so great. Or, all these things. Like I care so much about who is picking these cookies up, what they're meant to celebrate, who they're celebrating. And I will never regret that. It makes setting boundaries harder, but I also like, that's just how I live my life. And if I'm going to do business, I'm going to do it that way too.
Yeah. Because you're just authentically you. And I'm the same way, and I make no apologies. Yes. I will not apologize for it. I am who I am. I'm stuck in my ways. I be who I be.
And you're fantastic. You're fantastic. And people come back to you and recommend you and love working with you, especially for that.
Most of my business is word of mouth. So very grateful for it. Very grateful for it.
I haven't like tabulated what percentage of that is my word of mouth for you, but I'm pretty sure we're up there. Yeah. I'm always like, you have to reach out. Like, here's a tag, here's a site, like all that.
Sweet. Yeah. I love it. But I just love women supporting other women in business. I think it's so great. Like, especially when we do our coffee meetups and things like that. It's so much fun.
I love
And the camaraderie is there. There's no cattiness. Like, the camaraderie is there. There can be other cookie bakers or other makeup artists or other hairstylists. And guess what? We don't care. We're still all there to like see how we can collab with each other. Or, hey, maybe I can refer you the clients that I can't take. I don't have, I'm not available on this day. Would you be able to do this, for this client that I really love so much? And like, it's having that, like you said, that community. Like, it just works. It works so well. And I love, our little area, our little zone, how we support each other. I think it's great.
This area is so full of like the entrepreneurial spirit, but also the community itself is so receptive to supporting local makers and local artisans. Like, where else could you be like, oh, if you go to this chick 3 houses down, like ask her to make your wedding cake. Like, what? But people do that. And it still blows my mind. Sometimes I'll take the time to go back into like my Instagram, posts and stuff. Don't do that. Just don't. Spare yourself. But sometimes I'll go back in photos and I'm like, I posted this photo and people bought my cookies. Like, who saw
because
this?
We're looking at it like it's 1,000 times better than I can do.
And I have to give myself credit. Like, it was good for the time, and I've continued to get better, and that's fantastic. We've grown. We've practiced, like all of that. But yeah, like none of this would have been possible if I didn't have the community support and also their willingness to support entrepreneurs in the area. And I would say, by and large, this area is known for its support of local makers, small businesses, and if anything, we just want to know how to do that more, you know?
I noticed that the last event we were at together was the Katie Moms Night Out for the Katie Moms Network.
Yes.
And I'm constantly shouting out Natalie because I love her so much.
know.
But on your table, when I was helping you set up, you had all these amazing like products, like your vanilla and stuff like that.
Yes.
Can you tell us like when's that stuff available? How do we get it?
Yeah. So I started making products with the home baker in mind, like not like business baker, though by all means feel free to pick up some of my vanilla bean paste, but just like the mom who wants to bake with her kids, the grandmother who wants to make those holiday memories in the kitchen, like I had with my grandma. But it's just different these days. We're busy, or we're hosting things and we don't want to have to worry about washing 30 measuring cups or baking powder getting everywhere. Or also, eggs cost what they cost. And so we don't want to trial a recipe that doesn't work, right? And so I thought, okay, putting myself in that space and situation. Also, I have a 6-year-old and he sees me in the kitchen and he's curious and wants to get involved. And I want him to help, but I also don't want him to mess up the recipe, right?
Right.
So I thought, what can I do to make this easier? And I love bringing people together around their celebrations with these beautiful cookies. But what about like celebrating the weekend? Or what about it's your birthday? Or what about the other things that maybe you're not ordering from me for, but you still want sweet occasions to be a part of your occasion?
Yes.
And I thought, you know what if I can turn this cookie dough into a dry mix? What if I can make my icing available for this and make it as foolproof as possible? And so my first idea was to make my signature vanilla bean cookie dough available as a dry mix. And that premiered this October.
Yes.
And it was so well received. I also print my own cookie cutters. So I would add a cookie cutter, to the theme, the time of year. With those. So you could immediately go home, bake that up. You had a little cutter that you could decorate if you wanted, to cut out your cookies. And then the same thing with icing. Like if you're wanting to try out royal icing, one of the things you need is meringue powder. And meringue powder is basically powdered egg whites and some other things. And that stuff's expensive.
Yes, it is.
Like I remember trying cookies my first time and I was like, you want how many dollars for this tub of meringue powder?
How many dollars?
It's like 20, you know?
Yeah.
And if you hate it or if you never make it again and then that expires, that's a waste.
Throwing money in the
trash.
trash.
And we know how I feel about waste.
Yes.
So the mix includes all of that. All you have to do is add water.
Nice. I
So
love it.
it's just easy. And like the kiddos, they love to pour stuff into bowls. They love to help you out. But like, it's like we talked about, baking is a science. And so if you get the baking powder wrong, like you're not going to get what you were looking for.
Right.
So this is just, you empty out the cookie mix, you add the butter, you add the eggs, you blend, you whip it up and you're good to go. Right. So it's very easy, but you still get that memory of like baking with your kids, baking with your grandkids, making something from your own hands for the people that you love. And so I was so happy to work on that, after months and get that out to the public, and people loved it. And it just makes me so happy. I've gotten fantastic feedback.
Yes.
We did offer it in our birthday cake flavor as well. That was really fun. Pumpkin spice. So I'm working at still getting those flavors
spice.
out. Yeah. But making it easy. So you just have to add a couple things, not a whole, like you're not, remaking the whole dough for yourself. So that was really fun. And then vanilla products have been another.
Yes.
Like
I want to know about this
item.
vanilla bean paste.
Okay, so vanilla bean paste is my favorite thing.
Okay.
And so whenever you're getting vanilla extract, you're basically taking the whole bean, putting it in alcohol, and letting it sit for a long period of time. So it takes like a year to make a batch of vanilla extract, which I do have going. So I should have some available as soon as this summer, but then it'll just kind of I'll have more throughout the year. So you're just getting like the vanilla bean in the alcohol over a period of time. It kind of extracts that vanilla flavor, and that's where you get your extract. But the paste is the whole bean. So the vanilla bean caviar, those little like black circles, that and the whole pod gets blended with some other things, and you can just put that straight into your dough. And so for me, it feels like the vanilla flavor is that much deeper. You know, like that idea of like measuring vanilla with your heart. You know, because how many of us like follow the pancake box? It's like, put a teaspoon of vanilla. How about a tablespoon? Right?
Oh, girl, I was going to say,
yeah, just like forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm that way. And so I feel like the
flavor.
vanilla bean paste is like a huge powerhouse of vanilla flavor for a small amount.
Yeah.
So you can sub it 1 for 1 for extract. So if your recipe calls for a teaspoon of extract, you could put a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste in there, and it's just automatically better. So
and you could mix it in like your cake batter and so many different
cakes,
things
muffins,
to intensify the flavor. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And the waffle, because we love to do waffles on Sunday with strawberries
like soft,
and whipped
fluffy.
cream.
Oh, you can put it in your whipped cream. I've done that before too.
Oh, I bet that's so delicious.
If you
just
wanted
strawberries
to make,
and vanilla whipped cream.
If you wanted to make like a cold foam, like a sweet cold foam for your coffee at home, you could put that in some heavy cream and just whip it up. It'd be really good on top of.
So is everything on your website?
Yes, as they're available. But right now, my vanilla bean products sold out. So I did a pop-up at Homebrew for Valentine's Day, and the vanilla products sold out there. So I think my next batch of extract will be in the summer, but paste comes together quicker. So I will have paste on my website soon. And I also do vanilla syrup. So if you like to make coffee at home, you could put vanilla syrup in your coffee.
My husband loves that.
Yeah.
Vanilla syrups or
so
caramel syrup in the coffee. They're big coffee drinkers. My husband and my youngest daughter, they're big coffee drinkers.
Yeah. On my way here, I was like, where am I going to stop for my second cup of coffee today?
Yeah. I'm a tea drinker. I'm not so much a coffee drinker, but I love the smell of coffee and I love to like coffee candles, but I'm such a tea drinker. I had a question because I saw something on your social media that I was curious about, and I saw an article about it. How are bakers dealing with this whole situation with like dyes?
Oh yeah, great question.
Yeah. How do you navigate that?
So basically the decision has kind of been made for us, like for all of us and the baker community, like and food manufacturers, that red dye number 3 specifically has to be completely out of production. In I think it's 2027. Now California kind of had different ruling and time frame and all of that, and I think it might even be about a different dye, red 40. But those are some 2 very popular dyes that people have been against for maybe allergies or potential like carcinogens, like cancer causing effects, things like that. For some people it might be more about managing conditions, whether it be like autism or something like that, a behavioral things. So there's a lot of reasons people might choose to avoid that. It might also just be like, why are we consuming artificial things, right?
Yes.
Like some people just don't want to consume any artificial dyes at all, which I totally support. We have the right to make that decision.
Right.
It does affect bakers because a lot of us, we're just going out to the store, we're getting food gels, or we're ordering, online and it's a food gel. And so this ruling and this change has caused a lot of us to start looking at what we're putting into our baked goods. And it's been really great to have those constructive conversations where people really want to be heard and where I'm listening. And I come from a food science background and a health background, so I'm so into the science and the data and things like that. And I've also learned through experience that, sometimes those anecdotal story. So it's not like a huge science-backed study, but more like, well, I had this effect, and I've noticed these side effects from dyes are particularly interesting too. And what people may not know is that I do offer allergy-friendly modifications to my recipes. So like for pre-sales, for instance, or when I do a pop-up, I will almost always have an option that has no gluten, no dairy, no eggs, no nuts, peanuts, soy. So trying to be as accommodating as possible.
Yes.
And so whenever I heard about these dyes, I actually have a really good friend who has a red dye allergy. And those red dyes are in colors that aren't red. You might find it in a blue. You might find it in black. And so she's kind of had to stay away from my decorated cookies because of that allergy. And so I just think this is an interesting conversation, and it's forcing food color manufacturers to rethink what they're doing and how they're doing it, which I'm all for.
Yeah.
And I know personally in my business, I want to kind of go on a journey to figure out what dye-free, like artificial dye-free options work for me and my customer base. Because royal icing is very finicky, right? So you can't just put any old thing into your royal icing base. Otherwise, it'll mess up how the icing colors, tastes, dries, or doesn't dry. And nothing is worse than putting in all of that work into your cookie order and then the icing is messed up and it doesn't dry. And you have to scrape it all and do it again. So I really want to figure out what's going to work for us. And I think, again, this is like that behind the scenes thing that personally I'm not going to gripe about, but it's probably important to educate the customer base. Like, hey, I heard you are interested in dye-free options or artificial dye-free options. I'm going to test some stuff out. Let's see how it works.
Gotcha.
Because I think it's so quick to be like, people are so quick to say, oh, well, you know, cherries are red or beets are red, or, but it's not just red. That's the problem for some families. It's a multitude of colors, but also you can't take beets and get, you know, Aggie maroon, right?
Yes,
so
that's true.
How do you work things to get the same
Outcome,
gamut
to
of
get the
colors?
desired result. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so I know just like in what I've seen, and even I had a request for artificial dye-free cookies. And I got like this powdered plant food-based dye, and the color was never dark. So are you going to be okay with like a pastel outcome?
Yeah, like a watercolor style look. Are you good with that?
So just, it's a matter of learning how things work. I mean, it took me 5 years to figure out how my current options work. So how can I figure out how this new product line? But as far as I know some bakers are going to stockpile their red 3 reds and their red 40 reds. And they're going to use that for as long as they can. And that's cool. I'm committed to doing other options by the time it's required. And again, like cookie, I don't think I have a single client who is eating batches of my cookies every single day or every single week.
Yeah, it's a special occasion. It's a treat. Yeah.
And I think if we treat these foods in the meantime while we're phasing out those dyes that maybe people are trying to avoid, you'll be fine. Obviously, unless there's an allergy. But I'm transparent as possible, and I like to be as accommodating as possible. So I'm always open to conversation. And if a client is open to kind of being a test run on a new set of dyes, then I'm here for it.
Nice. I love it. See? You don't avoid it. We're just going to get through it.
Yeah. I think
you know what I mean?
It's okay to
things
not
change
know.
in different industries all the time. Things change in the makeup world. Like, you know, now all the products have to be like talc free. So it's like these powders and blushes, all these brands are reformulating and getting rid of all their old products and starting new. There's always going to be changes. As we learn more, we try to do better.
Yes.
You know, so it just is what it is. You just roll with the punches and move on to the next thing. You know, it's just trying to get us to a healthier place. And I'm okay with that. If I have to make some adjustments or invest some more in my company and my kit to get some better products, then so be it. Yeah. You know?
And on that reel that I posted about that red dye, I got a lot of comments from people I don't know, just people on the internet who were kind of in debates among themselves. And we're talking about how like, oh, well, if the alternative dyes cost more, you shouldn't be charging clients for it. And some people were saying the opposite. Well, like if it costs more, then we'll have to pass along that charge.
There's no other.
And I just think it's interesting. Like I think the average person who isn't in business, I can understand why they would feel that way. But from, you know, to some degree adopting my husband's recommendation, like it's business, right?
Right.
It's not a smart business decision to take a loss on your work. You know what I mean? So like if it costs X amount for the products for a set or for a client, right? And one of those items goes up more, well, then that's eating into your bottom line. That's eating into what's available to pay for your labor or, you know, the operation of your vehicle, right? Like you can't just not put gas in your mobile truck, right? You can't get anywhere.
Exactly.
And so I think it also is going to take understanding from people that if a price rises, it's because these dye alternatives costs more.
Right.
And, you know, we still need to be paying the people that work in the business their wages.
Mm-hmm.
If the cost of goods has gone up, then the price to the customer may also go up. And that's just it's interesting to hear others' perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely putting thought processes in my head. Like, okay, how am I going to adapt and still keep this business something that operates like a business, right? And not a hobby.
Yeah, because we still, at the end of the day, we still have to be profitable. You know, we are in business.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, the gas can't go up to $7 a gallon and then I'm charging 50 cents a mile. Like I would go under. Like it can't be, you know. So I totally get that. I do want to get into something a little bit lighter because I'm so curious because you are a baker. Is your kitchen like the most organized place in your house?
No, it's not. And I will say, like, I have aspirations for it. I try, but, and I think you can relate as like being a one-woman show in your business. I recently actually brought on help. I'm so grateful for her. Her name's Karina, and she does my admin work now.
Nice.
So she's answering inquiries and emails, and I feel like,
oh, that's okay.
Turn this around. I feel like it improves my customer experience to have a response from me quicker, you know?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's been so fantastic to have her join my team and to collaborate together. She has actually made me more organized just in like digital files.
Oh, I love it.
Because if we're sharing them, I don't want her to have to go on wild goose hunts, right? To find a photo for an email. And it's kind of forced me to organize myself more digitally. And it's kind of made me reevaluate like my cookie cutter storage, my food coloring storage, like all of these things that are just impacting my efficiencies. And so I do have like a system for my cutters. I have a system for my ingredients. Could it be better? Totally. And I've actually had discussions with some home organizers. Like,
I recommend Jenna from Bright and Tidy Home. Yes. She's incredible. I love her.
We have met so many fantastic local organizers through the Katie Women in Business.
Yes.
And just other networking communities here. Have you used Bright and Tidy?
Not yet, because there's just too much renovation going on in here. Once that's all done, then it would make sense. But for right now, girl, she'd be a mess.
Yeah. She'd be like, I'll come back later. No, but I do have high hopes, and we have so much storage available in my kitchen, and I know I'm not using it efficiently. I have a whole cabinet that's just trash bags.
Oh, wow. Waste of space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have one cabinet where like I'm not even sure what's in there. You know, like you have your junk drawer. I think I have a junk cabinet.
Drawer that has like spicy ketchup from Whataburger.
I love that ketchup.
There's like soy sauce packets in there, like an ink pen, girl, tape.
Batteries.
So yes, weird batteries that we don't know what they go to, or extra batteries for the remote. Everything's in that junk drawer.
Those little gadgets and all the kids' toys, or like the little furniture things.
Yes.
You know, it all
little Allen wrenches, all kinds of stuff. Like when you put together something from IKEA and it comes with an Allen wrench, you just throw that extra one in the junk drawer. And before you know it, the drawer's out of control.
Mine's out of control. So I wish I was more organized. It's an area of opportunity for me. We're working on it. I've improved. And part of it too is just getting to a place where I was so busy. I was just trying to get to the next thing. Yeah. And kind of working on cutting back on that chaos. Because the chaos I was building in my own schedule was definitely kind of transitioning to the physical chaos of the clutter in my kitchen too. So you can probably get an idea of like how chaotic my life is based on how crazy my drawer is. If there's cutters in there, it's a problem. Like, we need to send up a SOS flag.
So how do you juggle the cookie business and the family?
Not well in the past.
Yeah.
And we've talked about
come a long way. We've talked about it. Because you've said some things that have really resonated with me that made me take a second thought and a step back in certain instances. So,
well, I think when any entrepreneur breathes life into a business, it really does become like a baby, right? Like it needs our time, our attention. We wake up in the middle of the night wanting to pour into it. Like the 3 a.m. like happy anxiety wake ups that I just like could not get back to sleep till 6 a.m. You know, like, and then my day has to start. So we all go through that, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
And I know when you're a solopreneur, like tough cookies, no pun intended, but like it's just you. So you've created this chaos and now you have to go fulfill those orders, you know? And I was finding after a few years, like I had nothing left to give my family, or I didn't have what I wanted to give my family. Like my family was getting the last 10% of me instead of the first, you know? And I just knew my priorities were out of whack. Like I would say, oh, these are the order of my priorities. But if I was being honest and looking at how I was spending my time, it was all business. And it's just unsustainable. And I didn't want it to get to the point where I lost what was most important to me because I let something take over in a way it was never designed to, right? Like I firmly believe God put this desire on my heart, but I wasn't serving him in any way based on how my priorities were lining up at the end of the day. And it took it was just one statement. And my son was little and it stuck with me. He was little and I was like, hey buddy, can you go do this? And he was like, not now, Mom, I'm too busy. And I was like, and I mean, he was like 3 or something. He had no business learning this phrase. Who did he learn it from? Me. And I knew in that moment, like, oh, I taught him this. And I felt awful, but I was also in a position where I was like, well, I have this order, this order, this order. Like, I can't do anything about it right now. And I would say it's been a year and some change that I finally, like, I had so many conversations. And one of them was with you where I felt like they were divine. Like, I was having conversations with so many women, entrepreneurs, teachers, caregivers, people at HEB. And it would always come back to how busy we were and how tired we were and how guilty we felt over how busy and tired we were. And I was like, you know what? This isn't just me. We need to talk about it more. This is common, but it doesn't have to be normal. And what can I do about it? And then I met this fantastic woman. Her name is Annie. I'm sure you've met her at Katie Women in Business events. But she and I were having coffee with our boys. They were playing, and her daughter was there too. So the kids were all playing. And we were chatting about busyness and our hustle and how tired we were. Yeah. And how we wanted something different. And she is a business coach, a life coach. And so I remember I was like, is this crossing a line? Like, I don't want you to feel like I'm taking advantage of our time together. Like, if this is a business thing, like, please let me pay you. Like, we'll go do that. Yeah. And she was like, no, like, this is helping me as much as it's helping you. And I feel like we need to do something with this and do something about it. And so I kind of, we took off on a year of working on that. Putting our family first, putting our faith first, putting ourselves first. And at least for me, I also needed to calm the heck down. Yeah. The stress that I was under was not doing me any favors, was not doing my son and my relationship with my son any favors. I'm just so grateful that the change in my pace happened before anything was irreparably damaged. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I would say all of last year was just this work to prune things back, prune work back, prune relationships back, and just kind of reassess what's important, what's good, what I want more of. And what was wild to me, like going into January 2024, I prayed, I was like, God, steady my heart, ready my mind, because I've always been the kind to like assess how I am doing based on comparing myself to last year, right? Like people say like you're only ever in a competition with yourself. Like, yes, but also you can take that too far too.
Yes, you can.
And so in business, right, I think a lot of times we measure success on like revenue or profitability or whatever, like dollars oriented. And I knew that for the first time, well, what I thought I knew was that for the first time, I was going to be measuring success based on those numbers being less. You know what I mean? Like, I need to sell less than last year to be successful in my reprioritization. And I was sleeping more, and I was eating better, and I was drinking water, and I was, having conversations with my husband, and I was, playing with my son and going outside and doing all these great things, having my son's friends over, visiting family. I was doing all these great things.
You were having a life and a business.
And my business numbers never dropped below the previous year. And I just felt like
found your happy medium.
It was crazy. And I'm not one to sit here and like talk dollars, but the idea was I was like praying, God, prepare me for these numbers to be less. And it's almost like he was like, no, what you're doing is honoring me and what I've asked you to do, and watch this math not make any sense. You know how we joke like girl math? No, it was God math.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense. Like, how was I living a better life and my business was still meeting like my standards of success? It was just a really, and I would have been joyous and grateful because of the personal progress that I made. It had nothing to do with those numbers, but it was just like this little God wink of like, you think I can't do it? Yes, I can. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I don't know anything.
Yes.
I just know that I need to keep on this path of deepening my connections and spending time with my family and taking care of myself.
Yes.
And it's been a really great season. And now I feel like I talk about this every chance I get, because I just want people to see that like you can set that hustle down. But I also know that everybody's circumstances are different and you can't always. But there's something we can do to find a little bit more rest, I know that in my personal life, we faced a hardship at the end of last year, and it kind of just changed what I thought my business would look like this year.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing now. Like, things are kind of chaotic. And then Karina came into the picture. She's my admin now. And I was like, okay, like bringing her on means I kind of give myself the space to figure out what we're doing, how we're doing it, how, are we ramping up the busyness or not? But also like bringing somebody onto the team, which is fun.
Yes.
Stretching that like managerial role, or like, I don't know how to say it without sounding like there's a hierarchy in the business, because I don't know, but like just expanding the team. Yes. I've never had to do that before. So it's been a really cool learning lesson. I know I've just talked a lot.
No, but I love it. Your journey to get to where you are right now has been just, it's had its ups and downs, and you were able to stop and recognize when it was time to take that step back. And it's okay it's not selfish. Like, self-care is never selfish. It's not selfish to step back and take care of yourself and go, wait a minute, I've put myself into overdrive for this long. I have to take this break. Before it gets to the point where we're being hospitalized for exhaustion, you have to stop and look at yourself and go, wait a minute, I got to reevaluate something.
Yeah.
And something that stuck with me that you said was, you're like, okay, look at who I'm taking no to take on this extra order for whatever reason, because I want the clout of it, because I want to be able to say, I did that. I'm saying no to this little person who's looking up to me.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of statement really like resonates with me, because it's like, wait a minute, am I missing something super important? Am I willing to miss my child's graduation to go do hair and makeup on the set of this show? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to do that. Let me refer you somebody amazing, because my priority is this right now.
Right.
And more money will come later. There's always more money to be made. I can put that on the back burner to take care of this thing that's really, really important to me right now.
There'll be another show.
Exactly. Yeah. There'll be another show. This isn't the end all be all. There'll be another show.
Yeah, but your daughter's only going to celebrate her birthday and her graduation one time.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think it was something like the idea of saying yes to somebody or something is saying no to something or someone else. So when I say yes to an order beyond my capacity, now I'm saying no to my son. I'm saying no to my husband. I'm saying no to maybe my friends, right? Which also is important to me, being in, still feeling kind of new to a community, trying to figure out where I fit and where I belong. And I see posts all the time or talk to people all the time. And it's like, how do you find friends as an adult, or how do you find your tribe? Like, it takes a village. We all know that in relation to like raising kids, but it also takes a village like to surround you and support you as a grown woman.
Yes.
You know,
Say it again, sister.
Yeah. And you can't expect what you can't give. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, if you want friends that are going to surround you and lift you up or pull you up when you're down or encourage you or be there at your grand opening or be there at your show, right?
Yes.
You also have to be that person.
Yes.
And if you aren't allowing the time in your schedule to do that, how are you going to get there? You know? And so there's that common phrase, like, be the change you want to see in the world.
There it is.
But it's you can apply, like, be the person you want to meet, you know,
the kind of friend that you would want someone to be to you.
If you can't find a table that's, you know, has a chair waiting for you, then make your own. Invite people to your table. Make sure there's leaves in there so it can expand, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is really important to me. And I wouldn't be able to do any of that if I had continued to be so focused on growth or, you know, vanity metrics online or the clout or whatever. Like, cool. Like, I love that people love my cookies. Honest to goodness. It's awesome. And every time I get a set out, my son's so proud of it. Like, it's wonderful. But that won't mean anything if I don't have the time to give him mama cuddles in the morning, you know, or if I'm too strung out at the end of the day to feed my family a nutritious meal, which I probably didn't do for like 2 years. I don't know how we lived.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely a better fit for me now. And I get that at the front end of starting a business, it's going to look different.
Right.
It was like that for me when I did it. It was like that when my husband was, you know, launching his. Like, I get it. But it also doesn't have to be forever. And I think figuring out when it's time to switch to sustainability rather than growth, that's a really hard time.
Yeah.
Especially if, like me, you have often tied your value with what you're bringing to the family table. You know, like, I'm valuable because I'm bringing in an income, or I'm valuable because whatever it might be. But like, what are you tying your value to? And are you letting that take over your time? I know I was in the beginning.
Yeah.
So,
but lesson learned.
yeah.
We've crossed that bridge. We've overcome it. We're better now.
I would be lying if I tell you I didn't backpedal. Like, I'm coming off a week where I was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
You know, I can kind of start to see the signs. Like, when I start to feel the anxiety rising, I'm like, okay, well, I need to cut back.
Yeah. Well, we go through busy seasons and cycles in business. You just do. So you're like, well, let me capitalize on this right now so that I can take that 2-week vacation with my family.
Yes.
It's about finding that right balance and finding that right balance that works for you and keeps you, you know, in business.
And it's always evolving.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And I think one of the most powerful lessons that I took with me out of that time where I was working with Annie and our small group on reprioritizing our priorities and aligning our time to that shift in priorities was that concept of, you know, we all wear many hats.
Yes.
And sometimes we need to lay down one hat for the other, and we'll be in that hat a little bit longer. And like you said, it's for a season, but knowing before that season never ended, but now it's like, okay, it's holiday week. I'm going to have my baker hat on a little bit longer than normal. But next week, when it's not holiday week, my mom hat's going to be on a little bit more.
Nice.
Or, you know, I'm going to be I'll have my wife hat on a little bit more, or just, you know, have that better balance. And for me, that also looks like anticipating that busier week and like anticipating that season, like the holidays, right? Christmas time,
right?
Thanksgiving. It's kind of a stretch from like back to school. Then it's like back to school, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's just like, you know,
back to back to back. For
yeah.
You. Yeah. That season
and that
is
means
tough.
that before back to school, like on summertime, like we're making memories. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
We're going outside and playing in the sprinklers. I'm taking you to the pool. Like, that's what I'm doing. And so it kind of like fills the tank ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know, I find that works for us a little bit better.
I love it. I love it. Well, Marcie, it's been amazing having you on my
Thank
couch.
you.
You're so sweet.
We could talk forever.
I know. And that's the thing. Like with us, this episode would be 5 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
It would be like crazy. I'd have to split it up into three
Part
or four
three,
different
yeah.
parts. But just thank you so much for coming and
Thanks for
sharing so
having
much
me.
about you and your life and your business. I just love it. I just love to have you with me anytime. So this was an absolute pleasure. Will you share your socials with everyone and how they can book you and find your website online?
Yes. So my website is probably the best option for getting to my custom order form. And that is www.sweetoccasionscookieco.com. And then my socials, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Everything else overwhelms me right now, but this is working for now. My handle is at Sweet Occasions Cookie Co. on both Facebook and Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So you guys, please check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining us today. Take care. Bye-bye.